Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Code Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day, the recitation. Gaudi Mahalla Nama, Nar Achet Pap te Darre, Deen Dayal Sagal Pap Anjan, Saran Tahe Tum Parre, Rahao. वेद पुराण जास गुण गावत ताको नाम हिय मो तर रे पावन नाम जुगत में हर को सिमर सिमर कस मल सब हर रे मानस देह बहुर नह पावै कछु उपाय मुक्त का कर रे नानक कहत गाय करुणा में भव सागर कै पार उतर रे मानस देह बहुर नह पावै कछ उपाओ मुक्त का कर रे नानक कहत गाय करुणा में भव सागर कै पार उतर रे A call to awakening. Nar Achet Pap te Darre. Nar, generic term to signify a human, not from the word nara. Achet, unconscious, devoid of consciousness. Nar Achet Pap te Darre. Now, the use of the word pap is generally transcribed as sin. And then it becomes a question of, well, what is sin and what is not? To this translator's mind, in Gurbani, pap or sin is the error of not being awake. In other words, of being unconscious to the inner self. That is the primary sin, if you will. It's missing the mark. In other words, being in ego consciousness is the primary sin. Achet, ego consciousness is indeed achet because it is not fully attuned or aware of its higher self. So therefore, in a very important sense, we are devoid of consciousness, and that is what Guru Tegh Bahadur is pointing to. He says, Nar Achet Pap te Darre. The fear that you feel, the primary fear, which is existential, is rooted in the sin or the error of not being awake to your inner self. Achet Pap te, Nar Achet is being addressed as, O unconscious or insensible mind or individual. Deen Dayal Sagal Bhay Bhanjan Saran Tahe Tum Parre. Here is the advice. Find refuge in the sanctuary of the destroyer of all fears, because fear is our primary existential angst. So therefore, find refuge where all of your fears are dispelled. Saran tahe tum parre. Find that sanctuary. And that sanctuary is the inner self. So the question is, how do I get there? Well, for that you need Gur wisdom. You need the key of Gur wisdom to find your way to that sanctuary. He goes on to add, Ved Puran Jas Gun Gavat Tako Naam Hiye Mo Tarre. Naam Hiye Mo Tarre. Enshrine in the heart. Hiye, Hira, the heart, the core of your being. Tako, enshrine in the heart knowledge of that self. Tako Naam. And that self is glorified and adored by the scriptures. So self-knowledge is what you need and what you should be asking for. पावन नाम जुगत में हर को सिमर सिमर कसमल सब है. Because pavan naam, pavan is pure, clarifying. Naam is clarifying. It gives the mind clarity. Pavan naam jugat, that is the method. That is the method. The knowledge of the self is the purifying solvent for ego consciousness. And by constant attention to self-knowledge or recalling, clean the sin, cleanse yourself of that sin, that error that the ego consciousness makes. So, Ved Puran Jas Gun Gavat Tako Naam Hye Mo Tarare. Advice to us. Enshrine that in your heart. And in conclusion, Manas de Bahor na Pave. You may not have the human form again and again. It is invaluable, it is precious, because in the human form is consciousness. In other words, the apparatus that we have been given can enable us to evolve to a higher dimension of consciousness. This is the opportunity. This is that opportune time, because you have the tools and you have the structure to actually build on your existing consciousness. In other words, expand your consciousness. This is the time. And the human frame, the human body, the apparatus, the complex, the mind-body complex, is difficult to get. In other words, it's evolved over millions of years. And now that you have it, don't be so sure that you will have it again. Manas de bahor na pave. Kachu upay. Kuche upao. Find a solution. Find a way. Mukt ka karare. Find a way to freedom in this life. Nanak kahet gaay karuna mein bhav sagar ke par utarare. So says Nanak, awaken to the self. Gaay karuna mein, that compassionate self, and cross over the ocean of existence, bhav sagar, the ocean of fear. We are indeed in an ocean of fear, and what that means is that our primary angst is fear. The ego is always in fear. It is rooted in fear, fear of being extinguished. On that note, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.